The stars looked different when you traveled faster than light. Captain Jake Morrison watched them streak past the windows of the Terra's Edge as humanity took its first real steps into the galaxy. After 300 years of dreaming about this moment, they were finally here. "Captain, we're getting signals, said Lieutenant Amy Foster from her station. "Multiple sources, they're talking to each other." Jake felt his heart race. First contact, the moment every human had wondered about since they first looked up at the night sky. "Can you understand them?" "The computer is working on it, some kind of universal translation protocol." "Wait." Amy's eyes went wide. "Sir, I think they already know we're here." The main screen flickered, and suddenly Jake was looking at something that definitely wasn't human. The creature had scales like a snake, but it stood upright like a person. Its eyes were cold and yellow, and when it spoke, the words came through perfectly clear. "Unknown vessel, you are entering Galactic Federation space. State your species and purpose." Jake straightened his uniform. This was it. "I am Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth ship Terra's Edge. We come in peace, seeking contact with other intelligent life." The scaled alien made a sound that might have been laughter. "Earth. Another primitive world discovers space travel. How predictable." The alien's eyes seemed to look right through Jake. "I am Commander Vex of the Zephyrian fleet. You will follow us to Nexus Prime for processing." Processing? Jake didn't like the sound of that. All new species must be evaluated and assigned their place in the galactic order. Do not resist. Your technology is primitive compared to ours. The connection ended, and Jake found himself staring at a blank screen. Around him, his crew looked nervous. They had expected first contact to be historic, maybe even friendly. This felt more like being arrested. "Sir," called out Navigation Officer Tony Hayes. "We've got 12 ships surrounding us, big ones." Jake nodded slowly. They were outnumbered and outgunned. But something about the way Commander Vex had dismissed them bothered him. The alien seemed bored, like this was just another day at work. 3 days later, Jake found himself standing in the most incredible place he had ever seen. Nexus Prime was a space station the size of a small moon, with ships from dozens of different species docked around it. The air was breathable, the gravity felt normal, and everywhere he looked, there were aliens. Ambassador Lisa Carter had joined them for the formal first contact meeting. She was Earth's best diplomat, smart and tough. Jake was glad to have her here. "Welcome to the Galactic Federation," said the alien, greeting them. This one looked like a giant insect with 4 arms and compound eyes. "I am Delegate Crix of the Krell Empire. Your species will be evaluated for membership." Lisa stepped forward with a smile. "We're honored to meet you. Earth looks forward to joining the galactic community as equals." Delegate Crix made a clicking sound. "Equals? Oh no, young species. Equality must be earned. First, you must prove you can follow orders." They were led through corridors filled with aliens of all shapes and sizes. Jake noticed something odd. Despite all the different species, they all seemed to act the same way. Calm, orderly, boring. The main council chamber was huge, with representatives from 12 different species sitting in a circle. At the center stood General Vex, the same Zephyrian who had intercepted them. "Humans," General Vex began, his voice echoing in the chamber. "You are the latest species to achieve basic space travel. Congratulations. Now you must decide your fate." "What are our options?" Lisa asked. "Simple. Join the Federation as a protected species under our guidance, or be classified as a threat and dealt with accordingly." Jake felt his jaw clench. "What does protected species mean?" "You surrender your weapons, your artificial intelligence technology, and your independence. In return, we provide you with peace and safety. And if we refuse?" General Vex's scales seemed to shimmer with amusement. "Then you join the 47 other species who made that mistake. Their worlds are now mining colonies." Lisa kept her diplomatic smile, but Jake could see the anger in her eyes. "We need time to consider this offer." Of course, you have one standard month. Do not think about running. Our scouts are already watching your Earth. One small world, barely 3 billion people, primitive weapons. You cannot hide from us. As they were escorted back to their ship, Jake noticed something else about the Federation forces. Their weapons looked impressive, but they carried them like decorations. Their ships were huge and sleek, but they moved in perfect formations that never changed. They've never really fought anyone, have they? Jake whispered to Lisa. I don't think so, she whispered back. 3,000 years of peace makes you soft. Back on the Terra's edge, Jake sent an encrypted message to Earth. Admiral Scott Barnes would want to know everything about what they had seen. The Federation was powerful, but they had weaknesses. Captain, Amy said quietly, I've been analyzing their technology while we've been here. It's advanced, but it's old. Really old. Like, they stopped innovating centuries ago. Jake nodded. That matched what he had observed. The Federation ruled through fear and overwhelming force, but they had never faced an enemy that fought back with everything they had. On Earth, Admiral Scott Barnes read Jake's report 3 times. The Federation had ships, numbers, and technology. But they had ruled for so long that they had forgotten what real war looked like. They expected quick surrenders and easy victories. They had never fought humans. Barnes called an emergency meeting of Earth's military leaders. President Helen Rodriguez listened as he explained the situation. They want us to give up our AI technology, our weapons, and our freedom, Barnes said. In exchange, they'll let us live as slaves. What are our chances if we fight? President, Rodriguez asked. Barnes smiled grimly. They think we're just another primitive species with one planet and simple weapons. They have no idea what humans are capable of when we're backed into a corner. Then we prepare for war? No, Madam President. We prepare to win. As the month deadline approached, the galaxy watched and waited. The Federation expected another, easy victory. The humans seemed helpless, trapped with nowhere to run. But deep in the outer solar system, hidden behind asteroids and ice, something was stirring. Humanity had learned long ago that the best defense was a good offense, and they were very good at offense. The countdown to war had begun, and the galaxy had no idea what was coming. The ultimatum arrived exactly 1 month after first contact. President Helen Rodriguez stood in the war room deep beneath Washington, watching the alien message play on the main screen. General Vex looked even more smug than before. Humans of Earth, the Zephyrian general began. Your time to decide has ended. Will you submit to Federation authority, or will you face the consequences of defiance? President Rodriguez looked around the room at her advisors. Admiral Scott Barnes stood ready with Earth's military assessment. Dr. Amy Foster waited with her weapon reports. Every person in that room knew what their answer would be. Send our reply, Rodriguez said calmly. The transmission was short and simple. President Rodriguez looked directly into the camera and spoke 3 words that would change galactic history. Earth says no. Within hours, the Federation's response came back. A declaration of war, transmitted across the galaxy for all species to hear. General Vex appeared on screens everywhere, announcing that humanity would be crushed as an example to other worlds that might consider defying Federation rule. They think this will be easy, Admiral Barnes told his gathered officers. They expect us to panic, to beg for mercy, to surrender when we see their fleet. Colonel Ryan Bell stepped forward. Sir, Project Prometheus is ready for activation. Barnes nodded. For 5 years, ever since Earth's first deep space probes had detected signs of alien civilization, they had been preparing for this possibility. The public knew about the exploration ships and the peaceful missions. They had no idea about the rest. Activate all sites, Barnes ordered. Across the solar system, hidden installations came to life. Behind Jupiter's largest moon, massive shipyards that had been disguised as mining operations began launching vessels. Near Saturn's rings, weapon platforms that looked like scientific research stations powered up their systems. In the asteroid belt, what appeared to be automated mining drones revealed themselves as scout ships. Dr. Amy Foster monitored the activation from her laboratory. All systems green, Admiral. The AIs are coming online now. That was humanity's secret weapon. While other species in the galaxy used artificial intelligence for simple tasks, humans had developed something different. Their AIs could think, plan, and coordinate on a scale no organic mind could match. Each human ship was connected to every other ship through quantum entanglement networks that made communication instant across any distance. "How many ships do we have ready?" Barnes asked. 2,000 combat vessels, sir, plus support ships, supply lines, and mobile construction platforms. Barnes smiled. The Federation thought they were facing a primitive species with maybe a few dozen ships. They had no idea that humanity had been building their fleet in secret for years. Captain Tony Hayes returned from his reconnaissance mission with even better news. "Sir, I've observed Federation military exercises. They're using tactics that are hundreds of years old. Perfect formations, predictable patterns, no innovation." "Makes sense," said Commander Julia Evans, Earth's top logistics expert. "When you've been winning for 3,000 years, you stop trying new things." The Federation's mistake was assuming that all species thought like they did. They valued order, stability, and tradition. They fought wars the way their ancestors had fought wars, with overwhelming force and intimidation. Humans were different. Every war in their history had taught them something new. They adapted, improvised, and evolved their tactics constantly. Most importantly, they understood something the Federation had forgotten. Sometimes you had to be willing to lose everything to win. Lieutenant Commander Steve Adams finished his briefing on human fighter tactics. "The alien pilots are skilled, but they fly like they're in a parade. Perfect formations, no surprises. They've never faced anyone willing to ram their ships if necessary." That was another human advantage. The long-lived alien species valued their individual lives above victory. Humans understood that sometimes sacrifice was necessary for the greater good. "Sir," Captain Linda Moore reported, "our stealth ships have reached Federation space. We have eyes on their supply lines, their command centers, and their fleet formations." "Excellent. What's their response time to our rejection?" "Intelligence suggests they're assembling a force of about 200 ships. They consider this overwhelming force against a primitive species." Barnes laughed. 200 ships against our solar system. The Federation had made their second major mistake. They assumed that controlling space around Earth would be enough to force surrender. They didn't understand that humans had turned their entire solar system into a fortress. Colonel Gary White reported from his position near Mars. "Hidden defense platforms are online, sir. Automated weapon systems are ready. If they come through the traditional approach routes, they'll face crossfire from positions they can't even see." Major Susan Clark added her report from the outer system. "Long-range strike teams are positioned beyond Pluto. We can hit their supply lines before they even know we're there." President Rodriguez received updates every hour. The Federation was gathering their overwhelming force while humanity put the finishing touches on their preparations. The aliens expected to find a scared planet begging for mercy. Instead, they would find something the galaxy had never seen before. Dr. Nathan Brooks brought the final piece of the puzzle. "Madam President, our self-replicating construction systems are ready. Once we capture Federation technology, we can begin copying and improving their designs within hours." That was humanity's ultimate advantage. They didn't just want to win this war. They wanted to win it so completely that no one would ever threaten Earth again. "How long until their fleet arrives?" Rodriguez asked. 2 weeks, Madam President. They're broadcasting their approach to intimidate us." Rodriguez almost felt sorry for them. The Federation was so confident in their superiority that they were announcing their attack plans. They wanted humanity to see their doom approaching and surrender in fear. Instead, humanity was using that time to position their forces perfectly. Admiral Barnes made the final preparations. "All ships, all stations, all personnel. We are about to show the galaxy something it has never seen. We are about to show them what happens when you threaten humanity." Across the solar system, 2,000 ships waited in silence. Hidden weapon platforms powered up their systems. AI networks synchronized their targeting systems. Supply lines stretched from Earth to the outer planets, ready to support a war unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. The Federation fleet was coming, confident in their easy victory. They had crushed 47 species before. Humanity would be number 48. But humanity had spent its entire history fighting itself. They had learned every possible way to wage war, from honorable single combat to total destruction. They had developed weapons, tactics, and strategies that the peaceful galaxy couldn't even imagine. The Federation was about to learn why predators should never underestimate their prey. 2 weeks later, the alien fleet arrived at the edge of human space. General Vex himself commanded the force, expecting to accept Earth's surrender within hours. Instead, he found himself facing the most sophisticated military machine the galaxy had ever seen. The war was about to begin. General Vex stared at his command screen in confusion. His fleet of 200 ships had just dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the human solar system, expecting to find a few primitive vessels and a planet ready to surrender. Instead, his sensors were showing contacts everywhere. "Commander," called his tactical officer, "we're detecting multiple ships, hundreds of them." "Impossible," Vex hissed. "Our intelligence said they had maybe 20 vessels. Run a full scan." The results made his scales turn pale. Over 2,000 human ships were positioned throughout their solar system, many of them larger than anything in his fleet. Worse, they weren't running or hiding. They were moving into attack formation. Admiral Karen Mitchell watched the Federation fleet from her command ship, the Earth's Pride. She had been waiting for this moment for months. The aliens had just made their first tactical error by bunching their ships together in a tight formation. "All ships, this is Admiral Mitchell. Execute Battle Plan Alpha." Across the solar system, human vessels began moving with precision that amazed even their own crews. The AI coordination systems allowed every ship to know exactly where every other ship was at all times. No collisions, no confusion, no wasted movement. The Federation had never seen anything like it. "Sir," the Zephyrian tactical officer reported, "they're surrounding us." "How are they coordinating so many ships?" General Vex couldn't answer. In 3,000 years of Federation history, no enemy had ever fielded more than 50 ships at once. The logistics alone should have been impossible. "Fire a warning shot," Vex ordered. "They'll surrender when they see our firepower." The Federation flagship fired a single plasma bolt toward the nearest human vessel. The shot was intercepted by 3 different human ships working together, their combined defensive shields absorbing the energy easily. Then the humans fired back. Lieutenant Commander Steve Adams led the first wave of human fighters. Unlike the aliens who flew in perfect formations that never changed, the human pilots moved like a swarm of angry insects. They darted between the massive Federation ships, targeting weapon systems and shield generators with surgical precision. "This is Alpha Leader," Adams reported, "beginning close-range assault. These guys have no idea how to fight small, fast targets." He was right. The Federation's massive ships were designed to fight other massive ships in long-range duels. They had no defense against fighters that got inside their firing arcs and stayed there. Commander Julia Evans coordinated the supply lines from her position near Mars. "All ships, ammunition, and fuel are flowing perfectly. We can maintain this pace for months if necessary." That was another shock for the Federation. Their own supply systems required careful planning and scheduled deliveries. The humans seemed to have unlimited resources flowing to their ships in real time. Captain Tony Hayes led a squadron of stealth ships around the Federation's flank. "Command, I'm seeing their weakness. They're trying to maintain formation even under attack. They can't adapt." Admiral Mitchell smiled grimly. "Exploit it. All ships begin close-range assault." What happened next had never been seen in galactic warfare. Instead of standing off and trading long-range shots like civilized species, the human ships charged straight into the Federation formation. They rammed through the alien lines, firing at point-blank range, using their own ships as weapons when necessary. The Federation crews panicked. This wasn't how space battles were supposed to work. There were rules, traditions, proper procedures. The humans were ignoring all of them. "Sir," a terrified Zephyrian officer reported, "one of their ships just rammed our destroyer. Both ships are gone. but they took out 3 of our escorts with the explosion. General Vex couldn't believe what he was hearing. They destroyed their own ship on purpose? Yes, sir. And sir, they're doing it again. Across the battlefield, human ships were making sacrificial attacks whenever it gave them an advantage. The alien crews, who valued their long lives above everything else, couldn't understand this strategy. Major Susan Clark led boarding parties onto captured Federation vessels. "These ships are amazing," she reported over the comm, "but the crews don't know how to fight inside their own ships. They surrender the moment we breach their hulls." That was humanity's ground combat experience showing. Every human soldier knew how to fight in corridors, rooms, and tight spaces. The Federation crews had never faced boarding actions and had no training for close-quarters combat. "Sir," another Zephyrian officer called out, "we've lost 60 ships. Our formation is breaking apart." General Vex watched his perfect battle plan crumble. The humans weren't fighting like any enemy the Federation had ever faced. They used unpredictable tactics, sacrificed their own forces for strategic advantage, and seemed to have no fear of death. "Pull back," he ordered. "Reform at the outer marker." But the humans didn't let them retreat in peace. As the Federation ships tried to withdraw, human vessels harassed them every step of the way. They attacked the stragglers, ambushed the damaged ships, and turned an orderly retreat into a running battle. Captain Linda Moore commanded a squadron of long-range interceptors. "Admiral, they're trying to escape to regroup. Should we let them go?" "Negative," Admiral Mitchell replied. "Run them down. No survivors." The Federation had made another crucial mistake. They thought of war as a formal affair with rules and limits. Humans understood that once you started a war, you fought it until the enemy could never threaten you again. The battle raged for 18 hours. At the end, 197 Federation ships had been destroyed or captured. Only 3 vessels escaped, badly damaged and fleeing for their lives. The cost to humanity: 48 ships lost, mostly from ramming attacks and sacrificial maneuvers. General Vex found himself aboard one of the 3 surviving ships, staring at the tactical display in shock. In 18 hours, humanity had destroyed a force that should have been overwhelming. They had done it with tactics the Federation had never seen, and a willingness to accept losses that seemed insane. "Sir," his communications officer said quietly, "we're receiving a message from the human fleet." Admiral Mitchell's face appeared on the screen. She looked calm, professional, and absolutely terrifying. "General Vex, you attacked our home. Your fleet is destroyed. You have a choice now: surrender or face the consequences." "This isn't over," Vex hissed. "The Federation has 50,000 ships. We will crush your pathetic species." Mitchell's expression didn't change. "General, you just found out what happens when you send 200 ships against humanity. Do you really want to find out what happens when we send 2,000 ships against you?" The transmission ended, leaving Vex staring at a blank screen. Around him, his surviving crew members looked shocked and defeated. They had just witnessed the impossible. A primitive species had not only defeated Federation forces, but had made it look easy. News of the battle spread across the galaxy within hours. For the first time in 3,000 years, a Federation fleet had been destroyed. Species that had lived under Federation rule for centuries began to whisper among themselves. If the humans could do this, what else was possible? On Earth, President Rodriguez addressed the planet. "Today, humanity proved that we will not be bullied or enslaved. The Federation thought we were weak because we are new to space. They were wrong." Admiral Barnes reviewed the battle reports with satisfaction. "Phase 1 complete, Madam President. The galaxy now knows we can fight. Phase 2 begins immediately." "What's Phase 2? Barnes smiled grimly. "We show them we can win." Across human space, the real war machine began to activate. The battle at Mars had been just the beginning. Hidden construction facilities started working at full capacity. Scout ships departed for Federation space. Strike teams prepared for deep raids. The Federation thought they had seen humanity's full strength. They had no idea that the solar system battle had been fought with less than half of Earth's available forces. The galaxy was about to learn what total war really meant. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was the largest gathering of Federation leaders in over 1,000 years. Representatives from all 12 species crowded into the Great Chamber on Nexus Prime, their voices creating a cacophony of fear and anger. 50,000 ships, declared Supreme Admiral Thrix of the Krell Empire, his insect-like features clicking with agitation. We will mobilize every vessel in the Federation and crush these upstart humans once and for all. General Vex, still, recovering from his defeat at Mars, supported the plan. They cannot stand against our full might. Their victory was luck, nothing more. The Council voted unanimously. Every ship, every weapon, every soldier in the Federation would be gathered. For one massive assault on human space, it would be the largest military operation in galactic history. But while the Federation spent weeks gathering their forces, humanity was already moving. Admiral Paul Griffin stood on the bridge of the solar wind, watching his long-range sensors track Federation supply convoys. Remember, people, we're not here to play fair. We're here to win. His deep strike force consisted of 300 of humanity's fastest ships, equipped with the latest stealth technology and armed with weapons that could crack a planet. Their mission was simple: hit everything the Federation needed to fight, a war. Target acquired, reported Captain Linda Moore from her reconnaissance ship. Federation fuel depot at Kepler Station. No heavy defenses. Take it out, Griffin ordered. The attack lasted less than 10 minutes. Human ships appeared from nowhere, destroyed the fuel depot and its escorts, then vanished back into the darkness. By the time Federation reinforcements arrived, there was nothing left but debris. Across Federation space, the same scenario played out dozens of times. Supply depots, communication relays, shipyards, and command centers all came under attack, from human forces that struck like lightning and disappeared before anyone could respond. Colonel Gary White led ground operations on occupied worlds. His special forces teams didn't fight like traditional armies. They appeared in cities, destroyed key infrastructure, and melted away into the population before Federation security could react. The aliens don't understand guerrilla warfare, White reported to Earth Command. They expect enemies to wear uniforms and fight fair battles. We're hitting them where they live and they have no idea how to respond. On the occupied world of Terminus 7, Major Susan Clark led a team that captured the planetary governor's mansion. Instead of holding it, they planted explosives throughout the building and transmitted the governor's secret communications to every world in the sector. Sir, the governor pleaded with his Federation superiors, these humans are not fighting like a civilized species. They attack civilians, destroy infrastructure, and use psychological warfare. We need immediate reinforcements. But reinforcements were exactly what the Federation couldn't spare. Every ship was needed for the massive assault on Earth. Dr. Nathan Brooks monitored the deployment of humanity's most terrifying weapon from his laboratory deep beneath the Pacific Ocean. Project Replicator is active, Admiral. We've seeded their space with the nanobots. Admiral Barnes nodded grimly. How long until they notice? They won't until it's too late. The nanobots were humanity's answer to being outnumbered. Microscopic machines that could break down any matter and rebuild it into human technology. They spread through Federation space like an infection, turning asteroids into weapons platforms and derelict ships into human vessels. Supreme Admiral Thrix finally gathered his massive fleet. 52,000 ships from across the galaxy, the largest armada ever assembled. We will jump directly to Earth and end this war in one decisive battle, he announced to his gathered commanders. Sir, asked Admiral Kess of the Aquatic Union, what about their defensive positions throughout the solar system? Irrelevant. We have overwhelming numbers. They cannot stand against us. But humanity had learned something important from the first battle. The Federation only knew how to fight one kind of war, massive fleets meeting in open space for decisive battles. They had never faced an enemy that refused to fight on their terms. Let them come, Admiral Barnes told his assembled fleet commanders. When they arrive at Earth, they'll find our main fleet waiting for them. What they won't expect is what happens everywhere else. Commander Julia Evans coordinated the most complex military operation in human history. While the Federation's entire fleet moved toward Earth, human forces struck at the heart of Federation civilization. Captain Tony Hayes led simultaneous attacks on 12 different Federation homeworlds. Remember, we're not trying to conquer these planets. We're showing them that their military can't protect them. The psychological effect was devastating. For 3,000 years, Federation citizens had lived in perfect safety, protected by their overwhelming military superiority. Now human ships were attacking their homeworlds while their entire fleet was away fighting a single primitive species. The panic spread through Federation space like wildfire. If humanity could strike at their homeworlds, nowhere was safe. Admiral Karen Mitchell waited at Earth with 2,000 ships, the same force that had defeated the first Federation attack. When the massive alien fleet arrived, they expected to see her forces cowering behind planetary defenses. Instead, they found her ships advancing to meet them in open space. "They're insane," Admiral Thrix muttered as he watched the tactical display. 2,000 ships against 50,000. They must be planning to surrender. But surrender was the last thing on human minds. "All ships," Admiral Mitchell broadcast, "remember what we learned from the first battle. They can't adapt, they can't improvise, and they can't accept losses the way we can. Make them pay for every inch of space." The Second Battle of Earth began with the Federation expecting an easy victory. They had overwhelming numbers, superior firepower, and 3,000 years of military experience. What they didn't have was the human understanding of total war. Lieutenant Commander Steve Adams led fighter squadrons that swarmed through the Federation formation like angry hornets. "They're still flying in perfect formation," he reported. "They haven't learned anything." Major Susan Clark commanded boarding parties that captured Federation command ships and turned their own weapons against them. "These crews still don't know how to fight inside their own vessels." She laughed over the comm. But the real shock came when the Federation realized what had happened to their homeworlds. Reports flooded in from across their territory. Human forces had struck everywhere at once. Supply lines were cut, command centers were destroyed, and civilian populations were in panic. "Sir," a terrified Krell officer reported to Admiral Thrix, "we're receiving surrender requests from 17 different worlds. They're asking for protection from human attacks." Thrix felt his compound eyes dilate in shock. "Surrender requests? But we have 50,000 ships here." "Yes, sir, but the humans have forces everywhere else." That was when the Federation leadership finally understood what they were fighting. Humanity didn't just have a military. They had turned their entire species into a war machine. Every human was a potential soldier. Every human ship was a potential weapon, and every human world was a fortress. The battle raged for 3 days. At the end, the Federation's mighty fleet was scattered and broken. 30,000 ships destroyed, 15,000 captured, and the rest fleeing in every direction. The cost to humanity: 800 ships lost, mostly from ramming attacks, and sacrificial maneuvers that took out far more valuable Federation vessels. Admiral Thrix found himself broadcasting from his damaged flagship to every world in Federation space. "This is Supreme Admiral Thrix to all Federation forces. Cease all military operations. We request negotiations with the human government." The message was heard across the galaxy. For the first time in 3,000 years, the Federation was asking for peace. President Rodriguez received the surrender request in the same underground bunker where she had declared war months earlier. Around her, military leaders who had spent their entire careers preparing for this moment tried to process what they had accomplished. "Madam President," Admiral Barnes said quietly, "we've won. The Federation is requesting terms." Rodriguez nodded slowly. "What are our terms?" "Complete and total surrender, Madam President. Anything less leaves them able to threaten us again in the future." The galaxy held its breath, waiting to see what humanity would demand from their defeated enemies. The surrender ceremony took place aboard the human flagship New Horizon, orbiting the ruins of what had once been the Federation's most powerful fleet. Admiral Carol Davis watched through the main viewport as the surviving alien ships waited. In perfect formation, their weapons powered down and their shields dropped. 6 months. That's how long it had taken humanity to bring the Galactic Federation to its knees. Supreme Admiral Thrix of the Krell Empire stood before President Rodriguez, his insect-like features drooping with defeat. Behind him, the representatives of 11 other species waited silently. The proud aliens who had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years now looked like frightened children. "We surrender," Thrix said simply. "What are your terms?" President Rodriguez looked at the assembled alien leaders with calm, steady eyes. These beings had threatened to enslave humanity, to turn Earth into a mining colony, to treat humans like animals. Now they begged for mercy. "Complete demilitarization," she began. "Every warship in Federation space will be destroyed or turned over to human control. Every weapons factory will be shut down. Every military base will be abandoned." General Vex, his scales pale with shock, stepped forward. "But without our military, how will we maintain order? How will we protect ourselves?" Admiral Davis smiled coldly. "You won't need to protect yourselves. Earth will provide all the protection you need." The alien leaders exchanged worried glances. They were beginning to understand that humanity's terms would be more severe than simple surrender. "Second," President Rodriguez continued, "the Galactic Council is dissolved. All Federation laws are void. Each species will govern itself under human oversight." "Oversight?" asked Delegate Crix, his compound eyes focusing nervously on the human president. "Earth will station observers on every world to ensure compliance with our peace terms. Any violation will be met with immediate response." Captain Jake Morrison, the same man who had made first contact with the Federation, stepped forward. "Third, all space lanes are now under human control. No ship moves between systems without our permission." The psychological impact was devastating. The aliens had spent millennia as the masters of space travel. Now they would need human permission to leave their own worlds. Admiral Barnes delivered the final term. "Fourth, any species that attempts to rebuild military forces or challenge human authority will face the same fate as the Federation fleet." Supreme Admiral Thrix looked around the room desperately. "These terms, they make us prisoners in our own galaxy." "No," President Rodriguez said firmly. "They make you safe. For 3,000 years you ruled through fear and violence. You crushed 47 species that refused to submit. You threatened to enslave humanity for the crime of saying no." She stood and walked to the viewport, looking out at the stars. "We could have done the same to you. We could have destroyed your worlds, enslaved your people, turned your species into mining slaves. Instead, we're offering you something the Federation never gave its victims, the chance to live in peace." General Vex's voice was barely a whisper. "Why? Why spare us?" Admiral Davis answered. "Because unlike you, we understand the difference between victory and genocide. We fought to protect ourselves, not to rule others. But the real reason went deeper than mercy. Humanity had learned from studying the Federation's 3,000-year history. Empires that ruled through pure domination eventually collapsed from rebellion and internal strife. Fear was a useful tool, but respect lasted longer. Captain Tony Hayes reported from across Federation space. "All sectors are secure, Admiral. We have observers on every major world and monitoring stations at every space lane junction." General Alex Turner oversaw the occupation forces. "The transition is going smoothly. Most species are cooperating fully. They seem relieved. That surprised some human commanders, but it made perfect sense. The Federation had been a police state where any sign of independence could lead to destruction. Under human protection, species that hadn't been allowed to govern themselves for millennia were finally free to make their own choices." Dr. Nathan Brooks monitored the technological integration from his laboratory. "The nanobots have finished their work, Admiral. We now have manufacturing facilities throughout Federation space. Production capacity is at maximum. That was humanity's insurance policy. While the aliens saw observers and monitoring stations, they didn't realize that human technology was now embedded in every system. The nanobots had quietly converted asteroids, derelict ships, and abandoned stations into human military assets. If any species tried to rebel, they would find human forces already positioned throughout their territory. Commander Julia Evans coordinated the new galactic supply network. All major trade routes are operational under human oversight. Economic activity is actually increasing now that the Federation's restrictive trade laws are gone. For the first time in centuries, species could trade freely with each other without Federation approval. The economic boom that followed made the human occupation popular with merchants and workers across the galaxy. Captain Linda Moore led exploration fleets into previously forbidden regions of space. We're finding dozens of species the Federation kept isolated. Most of them are eager to join the new galactic community. The Federation had controlled the galaxy by keeping species separated and dependent. Humanity's approach was different. Unite the willing, protect the weak, and make sure everyone understood the consequences of choosing violence. President Rodriguez addressed the galaxy from Earth 6 months after the surrender. Her words were, broadcast to every world, translated into every known language. People of the galaxy, 6 months ago your leaders threatened to enslave humanity for refusing to submit to their authority. Today those same leaders live in peace under human protection. She paused, letting that sink in across thousands of worlds. Some of you may wonder why we fought so hard for our freedom. The answer is simple. Freedom is not something you can negotiate away or trade for safety. Either you are free or you are not. The Federation ruled you for 3,000 years through fear. They told you that without their protection, you would face chaos and destruction. They were wrong. You faced chaos and destruction because of their protection. Admiral Barnes provided the final crucial message. To any species watching this who might consider challenging the new order, understand this. The war against the Federation was not fought with humanity's full strength. Earth has military capabilities we never needed to use. It was true. The solar system battle had used less than half of Earth's available ships. The deep strikes had been carried out by specialized forces, while the majority of human military assets remained in reserve. The Federation never saw humanity's true power because they never forced humanity to reveal it. We fought the Federation with conventional weapons and standard tactics. We have others. The implication was clear. Humanity had won this war while holding back. No one wanted to find out what happened when humans stopped playing fair. Captain Morrison took command of the exploration vessel New Horizon, leading missions to map the galaxy and make contact with species beyond former Federation borders. What they found was a galaxy tired of war and ready for something new. Captain's log. Morrison recorded as his ship approached a previously unknown system. We've made contact with the Harmony Collective, a group of species that developed in isolation beyond Federation space. They've heard about the war and want to know if the stories are true. The stories were growing with each telling. Humanity, the species that appeared from nowhere and humbled the galactic superpowers in 6 months. The species that fought with tactics no one had ever seen and weapons no one could match. Some stories were accurate. Others were exaggerated. All of them served the same purpose, reminding the galaxy that humanity's patience had limits. President Rodriguez reviewed reports from across human space in her office overlooking the rebuilt Washington skyline. The war had changed everything. Humanity was no longer a single-planet species dreaming of the stars. They were the dominant military power in the galaxy, responsible for the safety and freedom of hundreds of worlds. Madam President, Admiral Barnes, reported all sectors remain peaceful. Economic activity is up 30% galaxy-wide. No incidents of violence between species in over 4 months. Any signs of military buildup? None, Madam President. Our monitoring systems would detect any attempt to rebuild weapons capabilities. Rodriguez nodded. The peace was holding, but she knew it was a fragile thing. Humanity had won through superior strategy and overwhelming force, but they maintained control through something more subtle. The knowledge that challenging them was pointless. The galaxy had learned that humans didn't just fight wars. They won them so completely that their enemies never wanted to fight again. As President Rodriguez looked out at the stars, she reflected on how much had changed since Captain Morrison's first contact with the Federation. Humanity had gone from an unknown species to the galaxy's protector in less than a year. The Federation had made one final, fatal mistake. They had assumed that because humanity was new to space, they would fight like every other species the Federation had encountered. Instead, they discovered that humans brought 300 years of